What's up, my precious little pack, and welcome back to VEGA Conflict. So, since Kixeye buffed them, I've managed to get the repair time down to, as you can see, 10 hours roughly of repair time for the attacks. However, there's still a little bit that I need to change in the fight to be able to more effectively force the AI to do what I want it to, but it's getting close. The minimum repair time that I can see being acceptable is 5 hours, and that's about what I'll be able to take at the end of the fight. However, a few misclicks again on my part. A single bastion was out of place. If not, that would have actually been the 5-hour or 6-hour repair time I was originally going for. However, the AI fleets, they're still dangerous because of the change, and the fact that the Phoenix frigates will now fire through the majority of your fleet because Kixeye said, well, they didn't have enough chaining because Kixeye made the ships that we use, so it was a disgusting move on their part, and I shared my thoughts on the forum, but here I can actually speak more of my mind without having to hold back, because I won't be banned from the forum or anything like that. And this video won't be shared to the forum by me or anybody else, hopefully. It'll stay right here, but the attack consists of a two-part fight, and that is separating each AI group in the research division to split up and go around your fleet. Now, you want one group to be specifically the group that contains the wraiths. So you want the AI wraiths to be on either your left or your right, and then you want the random group of ships to be either bastions or frigates, because there's going to be a mix of them all, because you can't perfectly separate the AIs because they're all moving at the same speed. So it gets pretty hard. That doesn't mean you can't destroy them. And as Cyrus pointed out, you can use the wraith to tank most of the damage, and that was what my goal was, but I misclicked with one of the bastions while I was regrouping it with the carrier, and it went out a little too close to the blight field, and it wasn't even that the AI was shooting it. Their frigates shoved my ship out into the blight field, so it got heavily damaged, and it wasn't even because of the fight, it was because it was pushed out. But the minimum repair time that I can see happening, as I said, is going to be around 5 hours for the fight, but I'm still trying to perfect it before I actually show it off. But as of right now, it involves sending the wraiths ahead to engage the Phoenix frigates because they have no armor, so right off the bat its overdrive is going to be active, so all you have to do is just start wailing on them. It'll start disabling their guns. The second your overdrive is active on it, immediately turn and start shooting either the bastions or the wraiths, preferably shooting the ones towards the center of the group while your overdrive is active, just to disable their weapons to buy that little bit of time for you to fire, because so long as they're being hit by your overdrive induced wraith, they can't fire. So a beam weapon on a wraith would also be highly useful, just to hold them back a little bit and force one target to stop from firing, or go with an all high explosive build on the wraith, which would involve as much AoE as you can get on a single missile, and you just literally hit one area, and if the enemy is clumped up, you disable as many of their weapons as you can. And you do this as often as you can. But the bastions, they're actually doing their job. The ones that I built to tank the plasma damage, they're tanking it, and they're doing it quite well, because this one had the focus of 3 enemy bastions, while the other ones were being picked off by my carrier, because what I was doing with my Sovereign was single targeting each and every bastion one at a time, while I was allowing every other ship in my fleet to fire at the closest target. And in a few cases, I selected 2 of my bastions and had them fire on the wraiths in coordination. They destroyed 2 of the 5 or 6 wraiths before the carrier was finished with the bastions, and it started on the wraiths. And again, none of my fittings are all super fittings. They're all stuff that is within the entire player base's grasp, such as plasma gear and everything like that. And you'll see that some fittings have one type, one fitting has a different type. And that was just in favor of the fitting. This one was the previous version of this one, just like this one was the second version of this one. The first one had alien weapons, second one didn't. And there was the third one, which is over here, which was being built up, and it was specifically being set up for basing, but I don't base targets, I typically fight the AI fleets. The Bastion on the Wraith on the other hand, not the Bastions, it is fairly straightforward and simple for what its goal is. Simply get up in the enemy's face, hug them, and just let it brawl with them, because so long as it's fighting, it's restoring its own health. And so far, they haven't been able to drop its health yet. And as you can see, it also has a lower repair time than the Bastions, which come in at typically 5 hours, 17 minutes. While it has 4 hours, 25 minutes, however, due to the armor and stuff like that, it doesn't seem to be taking as much. And this is with it being the focus of the enemy fleet, so they're the ones hitting it the most. So as you can see, the light damage from all of them is actually around an hour and a half, whereas its repair time is only around an hour and a half, because it was tanking all the damage. The carrier, on the other hand, I typically have sit back a little bit because of the frigates. Whenever their chaining effect goes through it for some reason, my game typically bugs out a little bit when it gets hit by them, and it tends to show that it's actually losing more health than it actually is. In this case, it lost next to nothing. However, in the combat during the fight, it actually showed that it had lost roughly 90% of its health, and yet when I pulled it out of the fight and checked the aftermath, it was just fine. It was actually the Bastion that took that 95 or plus damage to itself. But had I not made the misclick, I would be able to continue farming for another 1 or 2 attacks and continue doing that 3 boxes per day, and then log out for around 20 hours repair time, or in this case 15 or 18 hours repair time, and it would be acceptable. So just because Kixeye changed the 110s and made them more difficult, it didn't mean that they actually took away strategy. You just have to look at the target and think, what do I need to hit first? And what do I want to have hit first? In this case, Wraith would be the best choice, because the Bastions rely on shield bypass to do damage, and if their Bastions never get close to your Bastions to tear yours apart, or if you have plasma-fitted Bastions, I still have yet to change out their resistors, but if you have plasma-resistant ones, your best choice would be have your Wraith try and distract the AI Wraith, so it's Blight against Blight, and allow your Plasma Bastions to just brawl with the AI Bastions and just get up close in their face, pick them apart. Or alternatively, you can use a Pegasus fleet. And this fleet is specifically to screw over as many of the AI ships as you quickly can before you engage. You're going to attack twice. Now, a lot of people aren't going to like this because they're not going to get the points, but in my case, I don't need the points because I've already cleared the store. Now everything after this is just for the boxes. Well, take a Pegasus due to its strafing abilities, Pyrian fuel, and a net torpedo. What you're going to do is you're going to turn, and you're going to lose it, so you're not going to want any armor or shielding or anything on it, because you want to have the lowest repair time as you can. And what you're going to do is you're going to take net torpedo, you're going to turn to the side, you're going to strafe out, and you're going to get out as quickly as possible. You're going to allow the AI Bastions to run through the Blight Nebula field, but at the same time, you're going to have as much AoE on that net torpedo as you can. You're going to try and get as many of them stuck in it for as much damage as you can on them. Now, typically, the Pegasus only has, what, 20, 30 minutes repair time by default? Let's take a look here. 28 minutes by default. So with even a level 1, you'll be able to do this once every half an hour, provided your main fleet tanks everything. But the goal of the initial attack is to soften the AI fleet up so that your second attack can just decimate it. Because the reduced number of attackers also improves your chances of succeeding. So one attack where you're outnumbered is never ideal. Several attacks where you slowly pick the targets off but lose 1 weak repair time ship, which is under half an hour, is acceptable. So in this case, as I said, you would strafe with the Pegasus and it would be your opening attack. Or you'd have 2 of them and you'd send them in the opposite directions to pull the AI fleet apart so that you can take each Bastion off into the field, stasis them, and let them die. All while you're being run down. The minute that the enemy frigates or Wraiths catch up with you, let them destroy your ships so you don't have to worry about actually dealing with anything else. Take the 30 minutes repair time, then bring in your next fleet, which is where the main fleet would come in, and I would lead with the Wraith. What you'd do with the Wraith is you'd go headlong right at the AI fleet, but you'd have your actual fleet that is bastions, carrier, whatever you have, you'd have them wait about 5 seconds from the time that the race begins to move to actually start moving all of them, and you'd have them all grouped so that the carrier is the fastest ship, and the race would be in a second group altogether, so your entire group would be moving slower than the race, so it'd have a chance to engage the targets, get their attention, and then you'd use your fleet to destroy theirs. And this attack wasn't even using the Pegasus idea because I don't have any of mine fitted right now. I'm most likely going to put one in now, most likely pull it out using time tokens. But as of right now, that is the plan. You're going to stasis them and use a weak repair Pegasus just to literally spit in their eyes as much as you can, get them to suicide into the blight field for the bastions. Then you're going to engage them with your primary fleet. Hopefully you have a race because you're going to send it right into the AI fleet, distract them, and you're going to kill them one by focus firing with your bastions and anything else you may have in the fleet. Okay. That isn't the only thing I have to say. I actually have something else. This is... I've been playing War Commander again, and this idea was more or less inspired by that because the number of units we can have in a platoon in War Commander greatly makes combat more easy depending on what type of unit you want in the fight at any given time. However, in VEGA you have to choose 6 ships. Just like in Battle Pirates you have to choose between certain ships. What I'm suggesting what I'm suggesting is Kixeye change the fleet format and do away with formations and allow players to choose what ships deploy first and where they deploy within a small deployment zone, which is just a little green ring in combat when combat initiates, so you can set them up however you want, but you can also have as many ships as your fleet bay can support. So right now mine's 16, so it's got what, 140,000 tons? 144,000 tons. So in this case, it would do away with this menu like this, and instead you'd have little icons of these, probably 1/10 or 1/2 the size of what they are, and you'd literally be able to fill out as many of them as you can, and after it fills out the initial one, it would just add a scroll bar. And the idea of this is to allow you to throw more ships or bring more into a fight for strategy, so you can pick apart your target and decide what you want to fight, where you want to fight it. And XP would still be calculated the same. As you add a certain ship with certain XP values, it would be added to the overall XP value and take it up. So you may have, let's say, 20 or 22 Revelation cruisers in a maxed out fleet bay. The level would be calculated across the board for all of them, just like how it typically is. And this idea is just to allow the players to have a little bit more control over certain scenarios, especially in this case, because as you can see, I actually have additional mass, and I actually would like to add another ship to my fleet, and that is the Pegasus, so I don't have to attack in 2 attacks, but I can have the Pegasus deployed at the very edge of the deployment ring, while the rest of the ships are deployed towards the back, with the Wraith in the middle, and I'll have it strafe out, and more or less draw in the first group of bastions off to one side, well actually two Pegasuses in this case, and it would pull the bastions off to the side, stasis them, get them killed in the blight field, and then you would engage. But I think it would be a wise idea for Kixeye to do away with this 6-ship fleet setup that we currently have in formations and allow players to have a small deployment ring within the battlefield near where we would typically be deployed, so we can choose how we deploy right then and there, instead of how it currently is, where we have to choose formation ahead of time and then alter the formation at the beginning of the fight. It would allow us to have a little bit more tactical advantage against targets and choose how the fight starts. We still would have to take the damage, but we would at least be able to choose how the fight starts. And in that, it would be better in my eyes. But do all of you think that Kixeye should change the fleets so it is, as I said, and we are allowed to use the actual mass of the fleet bay, not just the actual number of fleet slots? Or do you think that's a bad idea? Go ahead and leave your thoughts below. I'm going to start fitting some more ships and stuff like that, and I'm going to take a peek at what I can get from a Pegasus, as I said, and use it as a just cannon fodder ship. But go ahead and let me know what all of you think of that idea. I'm going to go ahead and wait for some repair time and stuff like that to roll down, and I'm going to hop back into the fight, and I'm going to continue fighting. I'm going to work as hard as I can to get the strategy down pat, and I'll share it with all of you. But that's going to be it, everybody. If you liked the video, or the idea of actually changing how the fleet setup works so we can actually have more ships in combat based on our fleet level, well, the fleet bay and the mass, most definitely support the idea if you like it, because it could be beneficial for certain strategies to be employed. If you have any information you may want to share or any fittings, feel free to say so below in the comment section. If you would just like to say hi, well, hi to you now. I'm going to try and reply to comments during videos from now on, so I'll continue to do the thing that I do now where I like them to indicate for people to know that I've read the comment, and I'll reply to it if it's of great importance, or if it's decent information or good information that could be beneficial to the player base. I will share it in a video, and I'll make sure that I try to get the videos out as quickly as I possibly can. This video was actually planned for yesterday, but I wanted to test the AI fleets first to see just how much they'd been buffed, and after I did the initial attack, as I said on the forum, my strategy, I copied what I did before, and I got 20 hours repair time. And in the forum post that was actually merged with the main change to them, I said that it would be 20 hours for one box, and that was because I knew exactly what Kixeye was going to do. Always predict what they're going to do so you can be prepared, because if they say you're not supposed to do something, and you're fully prepared to do it even after they change the fleet, it's always going to be a better chance later on. Just like with my secondary fleet, I use it for farming time tokens to help me skip time off. It allows me to produce ships a little bit faster, and as each time goes by for the tiers, I just upgrade it so it becomes superior and better to the previous variation. Okay, now with that out of the way, that's it. There's nothing else to talk about, everybody. I hope the information I've shared is helpful to some of you, and that some of you can employ the tactic. You'll have to take the repair time, but it will be a little bit more manageable if you sacrifice Pegasus first just to do some damage to the bastions and slow them down. In the Blight field, just more or less kill off as many of them as you can by stasising them in the Blight field. But that's basically what I tried to do this time around, and what I did was I actually had my carrier push the first two AI bastions off into the Blight field when they engaged it, because I broke the carrier off so that the primary group could fight the race, and I allowed my carrier to push the enemy bastions off into the Blight field. And it's more or less just a matter of timing, but I would go with the idea that I actually came up with using the Pegasus more than pushing with the carrier, because if you get more than one bastion on your carrier, they're just going to shove you into the Blight field, as they did with my bastion with the frigates. But if you have any way to change the plan to improve it or anything like that, most definitely share it below, because right now the player base needs it, since Kixeye says that the recommended targets for this fleet is $300 worth of mark upgrades, which I'm not going to shell out, and I don't expect any of you to do that either. And if they did, I'm with the rest of the players in saying that this change was moronic and just, it was a low blow. This is the first time they were introduced, and this is how they treat it. Well, I'm going to continue working on coming up with strategies to pick them apart the way that I always do with brute force, but I'm also going to add a little bit of tactic into it to reduce repair times. Because playing the game, as I said in that post, is important. I don't want to log out after just 5 minutes of playing and wait 20 hours for repair times. It will be played on my terms, and that's something that Kixeye doesn't understand. The players have ultimate control. We can do whatever we want in the game, and we can alter whatever we want. Our fittings will change based on how they set up their fleets. There's nothing they can do to change that. But everybody, I've rambled on long enough. I hope you found this informative, helpful, and for some of you that can actually put this into use because you already have the ships ready, well, there you go. Pegasuses have a use. Just strip them of their armor and shielding so that there's the lowest repair time as they can get. Make sure you have Strafe Thrusters 5 on there, because you're going to want to turn. You're not going to want to actually turn to run. You're going to want to turn to strafe right away, just to help you get out of the way of danger a little bit quicker. But that's it, everybody. And as always, I'll see you later.